Do you remember the future?
You've got to come back with me.
Where?
Back to the future.
Are we back?
We're back.
What do you mean we're in the future?
October 21st, 2015.
Marty, we're gonna be able to see our wedding.
Wow. The future. I gotta check this out, Doc.
Look what happens to your son.
He's a complete wimp.
Don't talk to anyone.
You've been looking. Hey, look!
Don't touch anything.
I need to borrow your hoverboard.
And try not to look at anything. I didn't invent the time machine to win at gambling.
I can't lose.
I invented a time machine to travel through time.
Hey, Doc, I'm all for that. What's wrong with making a few bucks on the side?
Now,
The time continuum has been disrupted, creating an alternate 1985.
there have been a few changes.
It's like we're in hell or something.
No, it's Hill Valley, although I can't imagine hell being much worse.
But they'll all be back.
Eat less slackers!
Biff?
Hello? Hello? Anybody home?
Mom, that can't be you. You're so big.
Michael J. Fox. Christopher Lloyd. Michael J. Fox.
We're like a couple of teenagers, you know?
And Michael J. Fox.
Mom, is that you?
Steven Spielberg presents a Robert Zemeckis film, Back to the Future, Part 2.
Dearest Mother, I bet your balls you never thought you'd hear from me again, did ya? Well, I'm back. Back in the Marchy mood. And I can't wait to spend another month talking more Back to the Future. Do you know where I was this past week? Did you even realize nobody was even home to turn the sprinklers on when you came by to egg my house? Oh yeah, I saw it on my Ring doorbell, ya bitch. I was in Florida with my mother-in-law, someone who respects me. That's right, I am still married. You remember that, right? Remember that day I got married? You went to Foxwoods with your poker buddies and your big gift was an edible arrangement that was addressed only to my wife? Well, guess what? I ate all the pineapples. All of them! And that sweet treat was probably the nicest thing you've ever done for me. Let that sink in, lady. Oh yeah, back to the matter at hand. I'm once again doing that whole watching a movie a little bit at a time all month long every day, as I'm going to be talking about Back to the Future Part 2. And if you cared about me even a little, you'd rescind that restraining order. I don't need to worry about getting arrested this month every time I walk by some local dispensary with the offhand chance that you might be in there buying some of your magic chocolate, you goddamn junkie. Anyway, Back to the Future 2 all month long, whether you listen or not, whether you hear this or not, whether you care or not. You're not gonna stop me. Nothing will. Marchy McFly continues. Marchy McFly is back. Marchy McFly Year 6 begins now. Oh, and say hi to Dad for me the next time you honor him with your presence and actually come home some night. Love as always, your son, Michael. March 1st, 2026. Marchy McFly, Marchy McFly. Marchy McFly. Ready or not, year 6 of Marchy McFly. I'm back, great Scott. It's year 6. 31 straight days for you. In year 6. It's Back to the Future Part 2. Every day. Gonna have a little talk of Marty and Doc. 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 Happy Sunday, America! Happy March 1st, 2026. Happy Marchy McFly, everybody. What once started as a dream, a little month-long adventure, has now turned into a 6-year adventure. Yeah, we started with the first movie, and the fun of that was kind of copying my Joggist model of watching one movie every single day in the month of March. Well, for Joggist, it was obviously in August, but this was watching a movie every single day and then podcasting about it. And there was no rhyme or reason. It was just, let's see if I could watch a movie every day. Instead of with movie month, it was watch a different movie every day that I've never seen before. This was rewatching a movie over and over and over again. I did it with Jaws, so I thought, why not do it with my favorite movie in the world, Back to the Future? And along the way, just kind of have fun and do weird songs and skits and whatever and have guests on. And that turned into Marchy McFly 2 and Marchy McFly 3, and I thought, good, great, awesome. There's nothing else I could do. And then, of course, there's that golden year of Marchy 4, where I said, well, you know what? There is a television show. There was an animated series that just isn't. It just wasn't good. I'm glad I watched it. I'm glad I've kind of completed that circle. That is that what it is? Complete the circle? You know what I mean? But it really wasn't a great show, and I still haven't revisited it, and I never will. But again, I was glad to have some sort of new adventure with Marty and Doc. And that really, really, really was going to be the end. And I ended the podcast even saying that was it. But I got the bug. I got the bug to try something new, to try that kind of a copy of that the Minute podcast. I talked about this. I talked about this last March, but I'm here talking about it again for anyone who's new here. So last year, Marchy McFly, I went back to the beginning and I watched Back to the Future. Instead of watching it every day in March, I took the entirety of March to watch it once. And every day I broke it up into little chunks, and that's all I talked about. That's all I discussed every single day of March 2025. And I thought, well, if I could do that for the first movie, I sure as shit could do it for the second one. And here I am once again talking Back to the Future, talking Marty and Doc, talking Marchy McFly with Back to the Future Part 2. And I did the math, and I think I did it correctly this time. I don't think I did it correctly last time. I believe every day I'm going to be discussing 3 minutes and 20 seconds of Back to the Future Part 2, give or take a few seconds at the end. We're going from the beginning moment all the way at the beginning where it says, Universal Studios. And then, we're starting right then and there, and we're going all the way to the
end little sneak peek of Back to the Future Part 3, because of course we're going to need a sneak peek for what happens next year, because if I did it last year and I'm here doing it this year, I have to do it next year, don't I? It just seems to make sense. And when I did Marchy McFly 2, and I watched Back to the Future 2 every single day in the year 2022, I believe, it made me realize that out of the three movies, Back to the Future 2 is my least favorite. That's a good way to start off this month, right? Let's get ready to talk about my least favorite Back to the Future movie. Well, everyone has to have a least favorite. And to me, it just goes 1, 3, 2. There's only 3 movies. It's not like I'm ranking this out of the 17 Back to the Future movies. This is my least favorite one. It's just that 1 is the classic, 1 is the legend. And when I was younger, I used to think it was 1, 2, 3, just like that. But after rewatching them, maybe now that I'm I don't know, a mature adult or whatever that means, now it just seems like it's 1, 3, 2. And that doesn't mean I dislike Back to the Future Part 2. It is a flawed movie, and I look forward to talking about that. But there's also so much greatness in this movie, including the ending of this film, which is just, to me, still one of the best moments in all of Back to the Future, is the end of this movie. Back to the Future, no matter what you say about the original or the 2 sequels, they kind of nail the endings. They really nail those final moments. And in this one is my absolute favorite, probably of all of them. But Back to the Future, obviously the ending is legendary. It's great. But the creativity of what they did at the end of Part 2 is one of my favorite things. Getting to that point, and some of the choices and some of the plot devices or story paths they go down along the way. Part of it's, a little clunky to me, or a little frustrating, and what they have to do to make up for certain people not even being there. I feel like that was a hindrance to the movie, but that is far ahead. We're not even there. We're not going to talk about that. In fact, this first moment, that person that is not in the movie is in the movie. He's there at the beginning. In fact, the only person who's not there at the beginning is the original Jennifer. And I wonder, if you weren't a movie buff, did people even notice that Claudia Wells, well, I don't think people even knew the name Claudia Wells, but did they notice that Claudia Wells had been recast and was no longer part of the Back to the Future world, and instead she had been replaced by the girl who took and broke Danielson's heart, Elizabeth Shue, with just, I guess, a wig to make her look a little more like the Jennifer from the first one. I wonder if people even noticed that. But that's really the only difference with this opening, which is the ending of the first one. Well, that's not the only difference, but I'm not going to get into those 3 minutes and 20 seconds just yet. Since we're here talking about the very beginning of Back to the Future Part 2, which is the name of the movie. It's not Back to the Future 2, it's Back to the Future Part 2. I thought I would look a little bit into kind of the development of the movie, and by that I mean look at the Wikipedia page. It does say that, a sequel was not initially planned after Back to the Future Part 1. In fact, if you saw Back to the Future originally, it didn't say to be continued at the end. The DeLorean just drove off, and Huey Lewis just started singing. But they added that, I think, to the home video and to the cable versions of the film once the second movie was being developed, or once it was probably while it was being developed. It says Robert Zemeckis had not officially planned to do it, but the first film's box office success led to the conception of a second installment. He agreed to do it, but only if Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd returned as well. They were confirmed, and then he met with Bob Gale to create the story for the sequel, and they said they later would regret that they put Jennifer in the car because it required them to come up with a story that would fit her in rather than a whole new adventure. And here's the thing. Why? Why did it develop rather than a whole new adventure? No, you could just have a whole new adventure with Jennifer. How they deal with Jennifer in this movie is one of the most frustrating things. It's something that's done to create something. It's like they put something in that makes no sense to me in order for the story to progress and involve her, even though, and they said they wouldn't have put her in the car. Okay, well, because Jennifer really wasn't part of the first movie. She was a background character to show kind of what the world Marty had. You know, he had a girlfriend. That was pretty much it. And she was great. You know, she was great in her role. She was great with seeing the Pinheads audition. She believed in him, believed in his music. She was going camping with him. She loved him. But she played no role in going back to the past. And then you see her at the beginning of this one, and then all of a sudden, they give her something to do in the second one, enough that, you know, Elizabeth Shue was a well-known actress by then. She already did Adventures in Babysitting and Karate Kid, right? I mean, but they gave her kind of garbage to do. But again, I am getting ahead of things only because it's the beginning of this movie. And I'm just kind of talking about Back to the Future 2 as a whole before we start sticking to the 3 minutes and 20 seconds. And look, hey, I make the rules. So, I mean, you know, I'm not breaking the rules if I'm making them right. And then Bob Gale. What else has Bob Gale done besides Back to the Future Part 1, Part 2? I mean, I know he's done some things, but one of the things I wanted to look at was what everyone did between Back to the Future 1 and Back to the Future 2. And not everyone, but the characters that we see, because we do see some credits in these 3 minutes and 20 seconds, and we see some names. And I thought, well, I'd like to see what these folks did between 1 and 2. Now, Bob Gale, he's not listed at this point yet, but since we're already talking about him, let's look. He has written Back to the Future. Let's go back to Back to the Future. Since between Back to the Future 1 and Back to the Future 2, he's written no movies. He did one episode of Amazing Stories, which I'm sure is the one with Robert Zemeckis, and then right into Back to the Future. And it was pretty much, you know, he's done some things along the way, but 90% of what's on his IMDb after that point is some sort of Back to the Future related thing. He struck gold with Back to the Future, the first one. And to me, he's kind of been benefiting from that, I should say, ever since. Yes, he gave us Back to the Future 2 and 3, and he wrote those movies with Robert Zemeckis. And this is what we're getting. But it was never the gold that Back to the Future one, just the perfect harmony of everything that the first movie was. So it's like, okay, George Lucas, amazing with Star Wars. But then with the other two movies, he brought other people in to help with him. Yes, in the prequels, he did it all on his own. And people can say what they want about them, and people do say what they want about them because he did everything on his own. I think, right? I'm correct. But with like Empire, he brought in other people to help with, I don't think he kind of co-wrote it, but didn't direct it, I feel like he didn't write everything, but he created everything. You know what? I could just be making that up. Empire Strikes Back. Let's just look real quick, just for my brain. You're right. He wrote it with Lawrence Kasdan and Lee Brackett, and Irvin Kershner directed it. So again, it was George Lucas's vision, but he brought in other people. Whereas Back to the Future Part 2, there is two story. Robert Zemeckis, Bob Gale, and Bob Gale did the screenplay. Maybe it would have benefited if they brought someone else in to say, this part doesn't make any sense. Why did you do this? And what is this? And what's going on here? again, I'm getting ahead of myself, but that's how I feel. And if I'm not going to say it today, you're going to hear me complaining here and there along the way, but you're going to hear me praising at certain points too. You just are. Said Gale wrote most of the first draft by himself. Okay, see, because Robert Zemeckis was busy making another movie, and we're going to talk about those really quick. It said originally the first film's act took place in 1967 with Lorraine, she was a flower child protesting the war, and George was a college professor at Berkeley. Well, I wonder, they like the idea of going back in 55, but also the fact that Crispin Glover did not return. I guess his negotiating his fee, they ended up that being a major stumbling block. Crispin Glover not returning, I think, and I said it before, I've said it many times over the years, it threw a major stumbling block into what could have been with these sequels, because everyone else is there, but they have to work around him to a crazy degree. They basically ignore him completely in the third movie. But in this second one, and even with Leah Thompson, I mean, she's only in a little, but with this second movie, they just work around the whole George McFly issue completely, and not for the better. You know, I'll say that. I'll say it again. Not for the better. But they had to deal with it because they were making this movie no matter what. And, you know, I was interested in a couple of things. Like, what is... Oh, it says here, while writing the script for part 2, Gale wanted to push the first film's ideas further for humorous effect. He said some were concerned about portraying the future because of the risk of making wildly inaccurate predictions. Who cares? According to Gale, they tried to make the future a nice place where what's wrong is due to who lives in the future as opposed to the technology. I don't care about any of this. But I do know that this movie was still a success. Now, the first movie made $222 million in the box office, $392 million worldwide. The second movie made not half of that, but 119, but it did make more internationally, so it still made over 330 million worldwide. We're not going to talk about the third movie yet. It obviously didn't make as much money, probably because this movie came out the year before and people were like, meh, you know, I liked it, but are we just doing another cash grab? Where to me, I thought, oh great, we get to see another adventure with my two favorite characters, and that's what led me to watch the cartoons and look what happened there. But that is why I love these movies. And I don't mind movies making sequels when it's like, oh my God, I get to see my favorite characters having another adventure. I've read books about characters, like series where there's dozens of books about these characters. And to me, it's just like, oh good, I get another adventure with these characters. That's how I see it, not as they're making another cash grab, they're making a franchise, whatever this is. It's just not, even with like the big franchises now, which is mostly the superhero movies. Oh good, I get to see another adventure with these characters. Maybe it's not great, but if it does good enough, we get to see more. And people don't have to like it, people don't have to see it, but for those of you who do like it, you get to see more. So that's why I don't mind franchises all that much. Back to the Future wasn't quite a franchise. It's kind of turned into one with rides and games and comics and cartoons, but really it's just a trilogy. And here we are, part 2 again. I took some notes to talk about this first 3 minutes and 20 seconds, but I didn't plan on everything I'm saying right now is just kind of off the cuff. So if I'm all over the place, welcome to Marty McFly, and get used to it because you have a whole month. So strap in, buddy. All right, shall we actually talk about this first 3 minutes and 20 seconds of Back to the Future Part 2? I think it's time we get there. The film opens up with space. It's actually that old Universal Studios, just as Universal, that we had from the original 1985. We don't get it in Back to the Future Part 3, that's the first movie to use kind of the newer version. I think it's the first movie to use the newer version at the time of the Universal Studios opening. But this says, again, Universal, an MCA company. Now, that doesn't mean that Universal was owned by MCA from the Beastie Boys. It just means that it was owned by the company Music Corporation of America, which ceased existence in 1996. So it owned Universal, but now I guess maybe it was absorbed into NBC Universal, right? Or does Comcast own it all? I think Comcast owns everything. I feel like anything that was MCA now belongs to, I'm going to write Comcast. It is a division of, it's NBC Universal, now a division of Comcast. How exciting. Enough of that. Those pleasantries. The first thing we see is Steven Spielberg Presents. And I said I wanted to talk about what people did between Back to the Future and Back to the Future Part 2. Now, for Steven Spielberg, he's the producer. He's the executive producer. He's presenting this. So I'm only looking at things he produced from Back to the Future to Back to the Future Part 2. It looks like, I'm trying to think what he produced here that he also directed. There's a couple things. Young Sherlock Holmes, no. He produced The Color Purple. This is after Back to the Future. Then The Color Purple, which he directed. Money Pit. Then Amazing Stories. Probably, I think he produced a lot of those, and I think he came back for the Apple TV version. He produced An American Tail, Fievel. Then more Amazing Stories. First it was a TV movie, then Amazing Stories, the TV series. He produced the film Harry and the Hendersons. It says uncredited. Interesting. Uncredited Amazing Stories. Uncredited producer for Harry and the Hendersons. Uncredited producer for 3 O'Clock High, the school fighting movie. He was executive producer of Inner Space. I Want Moose. Jack Potter to the Rescue. Everyone knows Inner Space. Martin Short. Randy Quaid's brother, Dennis. And Meg Ryan. Come on. I love that movie. He produced Empire of the Sun, which he also directed. He produced Batteries Not Included. He produced The Land Before Time. Something called Tummy Trouble. That's a short. He produced the movie Dad. And I skipped over, he produced Who Framed Roger Rabbit, which we'll get back to. So that's what he had been working on. Dad, IMDb. Let's see, from 1989, directed by Gary David Goldberg. Why does that name sound familiar? With Ethan Hawke, Ted Danson, and Jack Lemmon. Gary David Goldberg also directed, he was one of the creators of Family Ties. Wow, this is all coming together. And then he also, he did the screenplay for Must Love Dogs. He created Spin City with Michael J. Fox. I didn't know that. But Must Love Dogs, I definitely saw that movie in the theater with my wife because she loves dogs and we love dogs. Wow. Oh, and he's no longer with us. Rest in peace. He passed away in 2013. Jeepers Creepers. So yeah, that was basically Steven Spielberg, what he was doing and all that time. Just directing a few movies. And then he, of course, is going, this is like right before he goes into Indiana Jones. So this must have been, these are the movies he directed between, since Back to the Future, which he didn't direct, but you know what I mean. Then after Steven Spielberg Presents, we get a Robert Zemeckis film, and you're asking yourself, what did Robert Zemeckis do between Back to the Future and Back to the Future 2? He directed a music video called Marty McFly and the Starlighters, Johnny Be Good. I can't believe that's its own credit, but maybe it was on MTV. So he got a director's credit for that. He directed Amazing Stories, the TV movie, a segment, and the Amazing Stories TV series. I wonder if it's the same thing. It just gets 2 credits. That's weird. And he directed one other feature film, Who Framed Roger Rabbit. And that's not the last time we're going to hear from that either. Roger Rabbit, which I saw in the theater, and I don't think I appreciated it enough at the time. I feel like if I look back on it now, I can appreciate the technical marvel it is, and kind of maybe the the satire that I might not have figured out might have gone over my head. But anyway, that's what we see, a Robert Zemeckis film. And then we get Saturday, October 26, 1985. We're picking up exactly where we left off. Now, it makes sense to me that you have to have the new Jennifer right here. But it almost, if I were to read, let's say I was to edit all three movies together, I'm not sure I would edit the part with Elizabeth Shue here yet. I don't think I'd stitch it right here where it opened up to Back to the Future Part 2. I think I would keep Part 1 because, again, you get to see Claudia Wells one more time. You get to see the original truck, which I believe is a little different. You still see Michael J. Fox's original hair, which is a little fluffier, just slightly different. Everything, it's slightly different. I don't know if I actually never compared the buildings to see if that was different. But it's close enough, and it's still pretty great how they did this. I love that they kind of just redid it, and he sees his truck, and he's like, oh my God, it's my truck that I didn't even know I have. Like, what if it was a stick? And he's like, oh my God, I've only driven an automatic. And, like all his life, he was like, I was going to learn to drive a stick because I wanted to get this truck, but I didn't get this truck. I didn't have this truck, so I didn't have to learn how to drive a stick. So he's like, oh, I better figure it out really quick. But again, I don't know if Toyota pickups were stick or automatic, so it really doesn't matter, does it? So he sees his truck. He's all excited. He's like, yes, I did it. But oh no, that original version of me, I banished him to 1955, so he doesn't get to enjoy this truck. And then we see the great Elizabeth Shue show up. How about a ride, mister? And he should have been like, oh my God, Jennifer, you look so different. What did the space-time continuum do to you? But he's like, Jennifer, oh, aren't you a sight for sore eyes? She's like, what, you act like you haven't seen me in a week, which is, it's a little on the nose, but it's still a pretty great line. Because he goes, but when he says I haven't, she would have been like, what? What do you mean you haven't? He's like, oh, she's like, are you sure everything's fine? And he says, yeah, everything's all right. He looks back, and who does he see in the door? His mother and father holding, Lorraine is holding George's book, and George is looking, smiling at his son, and there he is, Crispin Glover. That's not reshot. That's him. And I believe there was lawsuits and all kinds of issues because he's used here. And there's some photos where he's used. But again, what could have been? What could have been? Everything's great. He goes in to slip a little tongue to Jennifer. And then boom, friggin' Doc Brown shows up. He's a blocker. I don't want to say, you know what I mean? He shows up and he kind of, he kills the vibe. He kills the vibe. Now, Jennifer, I don't remember if Claudia Wells had this look, but Elizabeth Shue has this look on her face when Doc Brown shows up, like, what is going on there? And again, if I were to stitch these together, the first version of this is better. The first way that Doc Brown says, he goes, you got to come back with me. And Marty says, where? In the first movie, he says,
Back to the Future.
And I've always loved the way he says, like, Back to the Future. Like, he says it, like, he really exclaims it in that first one. But when they come back and do it again in part 2, he says it like this.
Back to the Future.
And that has always bugged me because it's such a perfect line reading, and I feel like it's almost it's an iconic line reading. Like, he says Back to the Future twice in the first one when he goes, next Saturday night we're sending you back to the future, and then this one here, Back to the Future. Like, I like the way he says that. I say Back to the Future a lot the way he says it there, and yet they didn't think, well, wait Chris, let's try that again. Can you try to say it more like the way you did it here, and just play it back for him, and he'd say it that way. It just bugged me. It bugs me to no end 30 plus years later. What is it? 36 years since the first one, since this second one came out. And I remember noticing it the first time I saw it, and it still bugs me to this end. So again, if I was to stitch these two movies together. I would keep the first one with with Claudia Wells as Jennifer, really just primarily for that line right there. Everything else to me is fairly seamless. What do we become, assholes? No, it's your kids. Something's got to be done about your kids. I think everything like that, I don't know if it's exactly exact, but nothing stood out. Even roads, where we're going, we don't need roads. But that is the moment where I would, I'd sneak in the second movie. So I'd have, saying I need fuel, get in the car. This includes her too. And we're going to take, by the way, he's going to take the new car for a spin. Jennifer would be like, wait, Marty, you got that car like 3 months ago. What are you talking about? Why are we going to take it for a drive? It's like, it's still the morning. Your brother is still on his way to work. So something's got to be done about your kids, which is a great line. And just like, the acting by Elizabeth Shue is a little, she's trying to look like, what's going on here? But when they get in the car, still Back to the Future 1, they back up. You can actually do it even here. You can switch to Elizabeth Shue here, have roads where we're going. We don't need roads. But I think I'd even leave this part from the first one. Then the moment they show Biff, I would switch over to part 2, because this is where you start to see the difference in movies. This is where you see, oh, wait a second, we're seeing another angle of something we've never, this is like something we didn't realize was happening when we saw the first movie. Obviously it wasn't happening, but in the world of Back to the Future, it was happening. Biff was coming out and he looks, of course, you'd think someone would notice. The parents are right outside. Nobody comes outside when there's something smashes, a spaceship-looking car smashes into their driveway. I was going to say, and their car just got hit the other day, but it didn't, because that was in the original timeline. But you'd think something would, freak them out. I don't think George ever saw the DeLorean in the first one. So, and did he know Doc Brown? No. Well, see, here's the thing. Lorraine knew Doc Brown. See, there are holes that can be punched in the fact that there's still a sequel. And Marty gets in the car and doesn't say, I'll be right back. Nothing. He just gets in a car, but nobody notices the car smashing into... Look, okay. Again, I'm going to be poking holes all month long. But I'm still loving it. I love to talk about these movies. And I do love that Biff is the one who comes out and is like, what's going on here? He even sees a flying DeLorean, and we get to see the different angle of where, we see the original shot of the DeLorean flying straight at the screen, and then we get to see a different angle of it actually disappearing in the air, and we get the same fire tracks from the original for some reason. It looks cool, but again, scientifically or logically, I don't know why it's there. The DeLorean disappears, and Biff is like, what the hell's going on here? Like, he's definitely, you see this, the Biff that we see at the end of the original, where he's like, Mr. McFly, your new book's here. And Marty, your truck is all waxed. Even though he did try to lie about putting a second coat onto George's car, that guy kind of disappeared for a moment, and we got to see the real Biff, where he goes like, what the hell's going on here? Like, he something freaked him out. But here's the thing. He tells no one. For 30 years, Biff Tannen holds a secret. A secret. Like, I would run into the house and be like, George, Lorraine, Marty just disappeared with that creepy doctor again. I fear for the worst. Like, where did he go? Where did they drive? Into the sky. Okay, Biff. Maybe those car wax fumes are getting to your head. The turtle wax fumes. He doesn't tell anybody for 30 years. In fact, we don't know what he does for the next 30 years because there's no interesting. What would he do? What would you do? I guess I'd tell my wife, and he must have a wife or an ex-wife because he has grandkids. I know I'm getting ahead of myself, but I'm just thinking what this Biff does. He tells nobody, and I guess, like, I'm trying to think what happens to come back to this version. He does come back to this version at the end of part 3, and Biff doesn't say anything about. I'm trying to think where we are at the end of part 3. If anything with Biff is like, wait a minute, you're a cowboy now? Well, you just left. What was with that flying DeLorean? Because that Biff doesn't know about the 30 years from now. This Biff seeing it again. Oh man, I love trying to come up with silly logic and making sense out of this craziness that doesn't need to be made sense out of, because it's just a fun adventure movie. But I love doing it. So this Biff sees it, and as far as we know, doesn't see anything. But what we see is we don't see any other actors for the rest of this. 20 seconds left. We see Back to the Future Part 2, and then we see credits of our 4 main actors: Christopher Lloyd, Leah Thompson, Thomas Wilson. Oh, I'm sorry, Michael J. Fox. First of all, starring Michael J. Fox, Christopher Lloyd, Leah Thompson, and Thomas F. Wilson. Those are the 4. They are the 4 pillars of Back to the Future. Yes, Doc and Marty are first. And really, George should be the second right there. But because of the sequels, he kind of got pushed to 5th, with Lorraine and Biff being the big Biff really being the third. Especially in the third movie, what he's done in this movie. Leah Thompson's in a lot of it too. But with the third movie, Leah Thompson's in it for like 5 seconds. Biff really becomes the third. But again, that's next year. I'm trying to not talk about other things, but I just can't help it. But let's talk about it. I talked about what Robert Zemeckis and Bob Gale and Steven Spielberg did between Back to the Future 1 and 2. Let's talk about these 4 actors. So Marty McFly, played by Michael J. Fox, he has done quite a bit between Back to the Future 1 and 2. First, Teen Wolf, which I believe was filmed before Back to the Future, but because of the success, they rushed that into the theaters. Then he came back with the television film Family Ties Vacation, because yes, he was still shooting Family Ties between Back to the Future 1 and 2. He was in the Johnny B. Good video. That doesn't matter. He was in a video for Julian Lennon. Didn't know that. He was then in the movie Light of Day. He was in some TV show called The Return of Bruno. Was that like a thing with Bruce Willis? Because he's playing himself. The Secret of My Success. After that, that's Bright Lights, Big City. Family Ties, he still was doing that. And then the movie Casualties of War with Sean Penn right before Back to the Future Part 2. I think that was he was like, I'm gonna be at war. I'm gonna be a serious actor, and they're like, we're gonna give you Back to the Future Part 2, and here's a boatload of money. I'm back. So that's what he was doing. That seemed like a pretty good list. Christopher Lloyd was doing a lot too as well. He was in the Power of Love video. Well, I don't know if that matters. He was in Clue, obviously, as Professor Plum. Great movie. Amazing Stories, again, I think with Robert Zemeckis. Miracles, I don't know. What is Miracles movie? I don't think I looked at that. Miracles movie, Christopher Lloyd. I'm not familiar with that. That is a movie directed and written by Jim Kauf, starring Tom Conti, Terry Garr, Paul Rodriguez. I don't know who Tom Conti is. I know Terry Garr, and then Christopher Lloyd. Interesting. I don't know this movie, and I don't care to learn more about it. So let's go back to what else he's done. Walk Like a Man. That was where Howie Mandel was basically like Tarzan, right? Bailey Smock. I don't know what that is. Who Framed Roger Rabbit? There you go. Who Framed Roger Rabbit? He was Judge Doom. He was the big villain for Robert Zemeckis' Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Then he was in something called Track 29, 8 Men Out, the great baseball movie, some TV series called The Dictator, The Dream Team, which was, right, wasn't that Michael Keaton and Stephen Furst and they were like, they escaped from like a asylum or something like that. Then he came back for Back to the Future Part 2. Then we have Leah Thompson between Back to the Future 1 and Back to the Future 2. Nothing but classics. She had something called Going Undercover. I kind of think I know what that is. Space Camp, which again I loved, and I loved her in it. Howard the Duck, I loved her in it. Not a great movie, I'll say. In fact, it's kind of, isn't that like notoriously terrible? But I remember as a kid thinking it was kind of fun. Even as a kid, I think I knew it was flawed. Some Kind of Wonderful, which is that a John Hughes movie? If it isn't, it should be. Casual Sex, which I'm pretty sure Dice was in that. The Wizard of Loneliness, Nightbreaker, Tales from the Crypt episode, and then Back to the Future Part 2. And then the shortest list, doesn't mean anything, still a great actor. Thomas F. Wilson, Back to the Future, between Back to the Future and Back to the Future 2. April Fool's Day, the horror movie. I know that more as the box from the video rental store, which I definitely rented. Smart Alex, Let's Get Harry, something called The Last Ride, which was a short, and The Great Action Jackson with the late, great Carl Weathers himself. And then, of course, Back to the Future Part 2. And that is where our 3 minutes and 20 seconds ends. The credits is just clouds. And again, I don't know why we're seeing clouds. When you think about it, think about what happens at the beginning of this movie. They fly through the air before they get to any clouds. Then we know exactly where they end up. We'll talk about that tomorrow. But why are we seeing clouds? Nobody's flying through the sky. Well, nobody's flying through the daytime sky, are they? I don't know why, whose idea it was to make clouds for these credits, but that's where we are, and that's where this first 3 minutes and 20 seconds ends, and that's where the end of day one of Marchy McFly 6 is. And I don't think, usually the first episodes and the last episode of Marchy McFly are the longest. This one went longer than I thought it would. But I am glad to be back. I am glad to get started, and kind of, I almost forgot, how do I do this? I went back and listened to the first episode of last year. I said, okay, just hit record and go. There's no rules. There's no, not everything's exactly right. I wasn't sure, a lot of times I play clips from the moments to start the show, but with the first episode, I got to play the trailer. And here's something that's different this year. A lot of the time I talk about, I'm going to pick up my mother-in-law in Florida soon. Actually, we were just there the other day. We just returned on Friday, and we were there last week. I'm going back in 3.5 weeks. I'm going back during March. I'm going back during Marchy McFly because she's coming back a little early this year. So that means that you are going to hear some banked episodes, meaning I need to make sure that I get a few episodes for that week recorded. I'm wondering if I should or could do one on demand during the adventure. And I kind of think I could. There's part of me that wants to do that. Maybe one episode, bank one and bake one in to do along the way somewhere. I don't know, because I get to Florida on a Tuesday. I have a Wednesday kind of rest day. Then Thursday we start our drive. Friday we continue our drive, and Saturday we get home. And then there's just a couple more days left. Thank God it's not towards the end. A couple of years ago, we were down there at the beginning of March. It was the cartoon season, so, no big deal. But I definitely recorded the first 3 or 4 episodes in February before we even got to Marchy McFly. Definitely didn't do that this time. It's definitely March 1st. Okay, it'll be March 1st in about a half hour. Actually, no, in about 10 minutes it'll be March 1st officially. But don't tell anybody that I told you that, okay? As far as you're concerned, it's March 1st. I'm in March 1st just like you're in March 1st. Haha, we did it. So we have 1 day down, and now we only have 30 more friggin' days to go. What are we going to talk about? Back to the Future 2. We're going to focus on those 3 minutes and 20 seconds that we talk about every day, and who knows what will come from it. Maybe some skits, maybe some ideas, maybe some songs, probably some songs, definitely some songs. And I hope to have my regular cast of Marchy McFly guests to come back and talk more Back to the Future Part 2. Not sure exactly when they're going to be on, but I am going to reach out to them. But I do know one thing. I'll be back tomorrow. I'll be back talking more Back to the Future 2 to Back to the Future You. And I hope you'll be back too. But until then, you can follow me on all the socials at Geek Mentality except TikTok, which is Geek Mentality Mike. You can follow us on YouTube. Fans Not Experts is the YouTube channel. You can follow us on Blue Sky. It's geekmentality.blue sky. It's Geek Mentality everywhere except, as I said, TikTok, Geek Mentality Mike. The YouTube channel is Fans Not Experts. The Facebook page is Fans Not Experts. That's because the website is fansnotexperts.com. If you go there now, you'll see this first episode. But if you want to just see Back to the Future stuff, Marchy McFly stuff, go to fansnotexperts.com/McFly. That'll just bring you directly to everything Marchy McFly. So that is it. I am done. I will see you tomorrow, my friends. And I haven't said this until Christmas Day. But until then, thank you for listening. Thank you for subscribing. Get ready for another month-long adventure. Happy Marchy McFly, everyone. I'll see you tomorrow. Until then, here is my theme song.
This is my podcast, I made it. Geek Mentality's what I named it. And I think you should listen and subscribe. Cause I'm kinda funny and awesome. I think that I'm worth your time. And I'm kinda handsome. My mom says, please listen and please subscribe. At least listen to this episode. Fans Not Experts.